de mayo del 2022 y tenemos como invitado al maestro Licerio Cruz Martínez. Muchas gracias, Licerio, por aceptar la invitación. Me voy a permitir presentar al maestro Licerio Antonio Cruz Martínez. Es académico de tiempo completo en la Facultad de Idiomas de la Universidad Veracruzana. Posee estudios de licenciatura en lengua inglesa en la Universidad Veracruzana con notas laudatorias y es maestro en la enseñanza del inglés como lengua extranjera por la misma universidad. Fue becario con CONACYT durante sus estudios de maestría. Es examinador de la certificación de lengua inglesa Exaber 1, 2 y 3. Cuenta con certificación de lengua inglesa, Certificate in Advanced English, CAE, nivel avanzado C1 por la Universidad de Cambridge. Actualmente es candidato a doctor en estudios de lenguaje y lingüística aplicada por la Universidad Veracruzana, llevando a cabo el proyecto de investigación, construcción de estrategias de aprendizaje de lenguas desde el enfoque sociocultural, el caso del idioma inglés en el sistema público en México. Además, cuenta con trabajos de investigación cualitativa y de enfoque mixto, presentados en foros y congresos internacionales. Cuenta con publicaciones acerca de los actores principales de la educación, estudiantes, profesores, egresados, empleadores, lingüística aplicada a la enseñanza-aprendizaje de lenguas, así como sobre estrategias de aprendizaje de la lengua inglesa, motivaciones para el estudio de una lengua extranjera, percepciones acerca de los roles de estos actores educativos e identidades profesionales de profesores estudiando programas de posgrado. También ha sido organizador y gestor del primer foro de investigación, discusión de avances y problemáticas del doctorado en Ciencias del Lenguaje y del Simposio de Especialistas en Enseñanza de Idiomas, CEI 2018. Pues sin más preámbulo, bienvenido, maestro Glicerio, y muy agradecido que haya usted aceptado esta invitación. Al final de su presentación, jóvenes pueden tener la oportunidad de hacerle las preguntas que consideren pertinente sobre este tema tan interesante y de necesidad para ustedes que el maestro aceptó presentarnos. Adelante, Glicerio, muchas gracias.
Gracias, querido maestro Esteban, muy amable por esa introducción tan decorosa. Oigan, yo había preparado la presentación en inglés, entonces, no sé, Esteban
No hay
y
ningún problema,
compañeros o
no hay
compañeras,
ningún problema. Se lo
si
puedes tú
prefieren que lo haga en
impartir en
español,
inglés.
lo puedo hacer en español, simplemente está escrito ahí en inglés. No sé qué prefieran todos, inglés, español, español, inglés, spanglish.
Como usted guste, maestro.
A mí en inglés me
No hay
parece bien.
problema, maestra.
Está bien en inglés, ¿verdad? Sí. Gracias por sus comentarios, gracias Esteban y compañeros. Ahí sí le combinamos, Alfredo, vas a ver. Bueno, gracias por la invitación. Voy a compartir la pantalla. Si me permiten, ahí. Ah, aquí está. Aquí está. Okay. This is my presentation. I'm sure this is going to be relevant for you because eventually you will have to write a research report. Regardless of the fact that you decide to do research or not, you will have to write a research paper for a postgraduate degree or simply because of your professional development. So I would say that the key word in this presentation is transversality. I would like you to think of the content that you have checked with your professor Esteban in this learning experience, in this course, which is about academic reading and writing, and what you can do with writing you know, which is the productive side of the process. It's a very powerful tool that you're going to have in your hands. A well-written paper is going to speak by its own. And in order for it to be well developed, you need to take a look at the structure carefully. That's the reason why I decided to present the main characteristics, elements, the components of the so-called theoretical framework, and to compare those elements with a literature review, which is very common to be misunderstood. Let's start with the context, okay? You're studying academic reading and writing. You don't know how to write a research paper or a research report yet because you haven't done it. Perhaps you have the experience of doing research, but depending on the field and depending on the paradigm and the methodology and the tradition, you're gonna make decisions, and those decisions are gonna be represented in a structure, in a frame, by the way. It's gonna be a frame. And that frame is going to follow conventions. And those conventions have already been set by a, let's say, a community of practice. For example, at a school, at the language school, the School of Languages, the one you're enrolling, you usually follow the American Psychological Association conventions. This is a tradition that we have followed for several years, and it's work, you know, to achieve cohesion, coherence in your writing, you know, to provide with proper credit for others' ideas, and for the sake of a structure, systematization of your writing. Now, as you already know, because you have studied academic reading and writing for more than 3 or 4 months, and you have already taken the course of reading and writing skills in English, graphic organizers, outlines, and in these structures help you follow a systematized procedure for writing. So writing an outline, outlining what you're going to write, is very helpful for you. This is an example of an outline. There are different kinds of outlines. You have already studied this, right? But I wanted to present an example of an outline because in the following slide, you will check one example of an outline in relation to the elements of a research paper. Now, what do we need to include in a research paper, in a research report? We usually find first and foremost the cover page, where you have the title of the paper, the name of the student, the name of the supervisor. Then you have a table of contents. Well, some people write an abstract, right? At the very end of the process, you have an introduction, which is edited through the whole process of doing research. That introduction includes a rationale, general objectives, specific objectives, research questions, subsidiary questions. This is the format. This is the skeleton of the introduction. Then you usually listen to people talking about the theoretical framework. There is another term that we managed to use in this field when doing research that has to do with the concepts. That is called the conceptual framework, which is a different one. You have another chapter in a research report, which is referred as literature review. You have the methodology, how the study was carried out. This is the methodological framework. You have the section of the findings, you know, after analyzing data, after following a complex procedure of data collection and interpretation, you have the findings. And you have, well, most of the time, a brief discussion of the findings, recommendations for further research, well, a couple of limitations of the study, and the conclusions at the end, you know, the implications of what you found. This is the structure. This is an outline. This is an outline, the general skeleton of a research report. Depending on the research topic, you will have to write a theoretical framework, a conceptual framework, or a literature review. Not every single topic, you know, has got the same research questions. And the research questions and the objectives, in fact, are going to require whether you need to write a theoretical framework or a literature review. What do you need to bear in mind when setting research questions and objectives and thinking of the structure of an introduction? Well, you need to think in a very systematic manner. You need to go to the methodology, and it's going to be a process of go back and forth, you know, because the research questions are going to demand, you know, the need for a theory, concepts, or a background of the topic. Okay, if you listen to me, you know, I said theory, concepts, or background of the topic under study. 3 different words to refer to 3 different elements in a research report that sometimes are misunderstood. Let's take a look at them in depth. Let's start with the theoretical framework. The theoretical framework is embedded in a very specific paradigm. What is a paradigm? A paradigm is a way of, it's a vision, you know, it's an overview. It's an overview. It's the way you take a look at phenomenon. You take a look at complex issues, science, education, philosophy. A paradigm is a way of thinking, you know, in other words. This theoretical framework emerges from positivism, you know, which is a very specific paradigm after Industrial Revolution, etc. But before we define the theoretical framework, let's divide the term. Okay, what is theory? What is theory? Theory is, in fact, ideas. They are ideas, but they are systematized ideas. Okay, you can think of examples of a theory. Well, of course, we have a lot in the field of education, you know, that we take in this lesson, right? We have the theory of Piaget, we have the theory of Krashen, we have the theory of Vygotsky, we have the theory of psychoanalysis. I mean, we can find a lot of examples of theory ideas that have been discussed for several scholars, that have been proposed, said, and that build up a framework to take a look at phenomena. Okay, it's a system of ideas to explain a particular phenomenon, your research topic, for example, especially based on general principles that guide the topic, you know, they square the topic, they shape it. It defines key concepts in your research, not a concept itself, but ideas that have been discussed. It proposes relations among those ideas. It discusses the theories, you know, once more for meeting the needs of your research topic. A strong theoretical framework gives direction. You know, it's a guidebook. Let's say it's a guidebook for your research topic. You're able to take a look at the phenomenon under study from different perspectives, from different scholars, authors who have already talked about the topic. The ideas have been already exposed on the spotlight. Some of them have been, you know, thoroughly published, and it's basically the structure of the topic under study. They're going to support your interpretation process of the data that you're going to collect. They're going to support the objectives that you set, the gap that you're trying to fill, and what you need to do in order to construct the structure of the theoretical framework is very straightforward. You need to identify key concepts, okay? Key ideas, key words. You're going to select the key terms from your problem statement and your research questions. You're going to evaluate and explain relevant theories, and you're going to explain how your research topic fits in that framework. I'm going to give you an example at the end of the presentation so that you can discriminate the process of writing the theory around your topic. Let me continue with the next slide. Okay. Now, what do you understand by the word literature? The word literature has been thoroughly revised, you know, for the field of arts, you know, but also for the research field. We usually refer to the word literature on a specific topic to think of previous investigations on the topic that you are about to investigate. It's a review because it's the revision of the findings, of the procedures, of the methods that have been employed for approaching the topic. Okay, if you say the literature on let's say on strategies for learning a foreign language, just one example, the literature on strategies, you referred to those previous studies that were implemented in different contexts, similar ones, different ones, commonalities and differences at the same time, that shed light on the topic under study. Are you still there? Hello?
Yes, we're here.
Please try to confirm. Answer, please.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, teacher.
Ah, sorry.
Yes.
I guess it was my internet connection. Sorry for my wireless, but I'm here. Okay. As I was saying, if we think of the literature on the strategies for learning foreign languages, we need to go back to what has been previously said, what other scholars have investigated in a specific context that share commonalities and that have differences in relation to your own context of research. That's quite relevant because that's gonna give you the green light for determining and setting the gap that you want to fill in that literature. So when we refer to the literature, we refer to what has been done in terms of research. Okay. what are the elements that we usually find in a literature review? Well, we usually find reviews of data, reviews of findings, reviews of results or outcomes of investigation. You usually find them in previous theses, journals, books, official documents, websites, and those outcomes, results, or findings provide with detailed descriptions, summaries, and evaluations of the topic that has been studied and that you're about to investigate. You can revise Creswell, Merriam, Payton, Denson, and Lincoln, authors from 2010, 2018, 2014, and you will find, a clear definition of what review means. I know you're familiar with the word review because you're studying reading and writing, right? Write a review of the film, write a review of the book. But if you think of the word review in the field of research, a review is a systematic revision of the data that was analyzed and the findings emerging from that data. In order to revise, you need to be really systematic. You need to evaluate. You will follow the process as I'm going to show you, by the way. This is the process that you're going to follow. I'm still here. Okay. You're going to narrow the topic. Okay. You're going to delimitate the topic. You're not going to think of the word, let's say, education. No. You go to the processes of learning, or you even narrow more the topic and you say the processes of learning inside the classroom. Or you can even go further, the processes of learning vocabulary in role plays. Okay, so you need to narrow the topic, because that's going to help you define what you really want to find, what you really want to do, and what you really need to read about. After narrowing the topic, you're going to search for literature. You're going to read what has been said in the different sources that I told you, research papers, theses, dissertations, journals, chapters of a book, books, official documents, the government, etc. You're going to read and you're going to evaluate what has been said. You're going to organize the papers in relation to the dates, whether they are current papers, whether they are relevant, they are suitable, And after the organization of the papers that you read has been done, you're going to develop your own thesis statement, okay, which is something you have revised with Professor Esteban and with your previous teachers, right? And that thesis statement is going to be the beginning of your literature review. You're going to be able to write a literature review. You're going to be able to evaluate what you have written. You're going to outline a literature review in response to your research questions, in response to the general affairs of your research topic. Okay? Let me continue. What are the basic elements of this different chapters, different sections of a report? The theory and the theoretical framework is connected intertwined, embedded in the research questions. Okay, the thesis statement, and sometimes with hypotheses, okay, depending on the paradigm, depending on the methodology, depending on the approach, whether you follow a qualitative approach or a quantitative approach. The objectives, of course, are part of the establishment, part of the foundations. You know, you cannot set research questions without thinking of the objectives. Okay, you cannot have a thesis statement without your own general and specific objectives. This is going to be part of your introduction. But this is not the focus of the talk. It's just for you to know the elements that are going to be taken into consideration for thinking of the development of a theoretical framework. Now, what about the concepts? What about a conceptual framework? Well, the concepts are dealing with specific definitions. Okay, part of your research topic is going to find theory, okay, a background and definitions that need to be discussed, and that's going to be another chapter of your research. Those concepts are very specific from your context. They are going to guide the reader for understanding how you understood the theory. The concepts need to be discussed in a different section because you're going to show the readers that you have your own position and that you understood the theory from a very particular perspective. So the concepts go in a different section. They, you know, scholars usually refer to this as the conceptual framework. Is there a relationship between the theory and the concepts? Of course. I mean, nobody can deny the relationship between ideas, concepts, and theories. Theories are made up of concepts and ideas, as a matter of fact, right? But this section is addressed for showing that you understood the theory in a particular manner, in a particular fashion, and that the research that you are doing has the anchor on those definitions, and that you understood a specific theory by means of the discrimination of concepts. Okay, and that's a different discussion. Another chapter that you could include in your research paper is the literature review, the literature on the topic. After you revise the theory, the definitions were discussed, you go for what has been said in similar contexts and different contexts from yours. Okay, you focus here on findings, on data, on the results of different research. Okay, we usually recommend reading and including, you know, in your literature review, regional, national, and international papers, because you can find different perspectives for discussing the gap that you're about to fill. Okay, let's continue. I want to show you one example. If we're going to construct one example, okay, of the differences. One conclusion: the theoretical framework gives a general representation of relationships between things in a given phenomenon. It's very systematic, okay? It deals with theory, and the conceptual framework embodies the specific direction of your research and how you understood the theory and how you want readers to follow the line that you are drawing in order to reach potential responses for your research questions. Finally, the literature review, which is a different section of the research report, deals with previous research in order to address your research question or questions. And it can be a narrative process where you discuss what you want to reach and what has been reached in different contexts. Okay? They are different. They also share commonalities. Okay? One thing they have in common is that they aim at answering your research questions, and they support all your foundations. All the foundations of your topic are there. You know, it's, you know, to go back to the Greeks, for example, you know, when you're thinking of theory, you usually go back to the authorities in the topic to support the relevance of your topic, the relevance of what you want to study, what you want to inquire. Okay, something which is very important for you to know is that whenever you want to do research, it's because you want to inquire, you want to discover, you want to explore, you want to understand. But that's not enough. You need to do it in a systematic manner. You need to follow conventions, procedures. You really need to be systematic. And for you to follow the appropriate procedures, dividing the chapters of your research paper by drawing an outline, it's going to be paramount. It's going to be really useful. It's important to know the differences, of course. Let me give you an example of what I'm trying to get at. You're already writing, right? You're already writing about a topic. Perhaps you're not doing research yet, but you're about to. I would like you to come out with a research topic. Any volunteer who wants to help me with a research topic, a very general one. Okay, let's carry out an exercise for discriminating a literature review from a theoretical framework. Okay, can anybody give me an example? Sorry? Can you repeat that?
Please, students, any one of you, please.
Yeah, any volunteer who wants to share a research topic, perhaps randomly, if you're not writing about a specific topic, well, randomly, something that you would like to inquire, something that could be worth studying in the field of languages. Yeah, Alfred.
Estaba intentando traducir el tema, pero no lo digo en español. Sería la traducción como medio de conquista, no sé, en los poblados en África, por ejemplo, o en América, donde quieras.
Más fácil, Alfredo, el que están ustedes haciendo.
Más fácil. Ok.
No, it's okay, Alfred. I'm already writing there.
Está difícil.
Can you repeat that?
La traducción como medios de conquista en América, por ejemplo. Como medio de conquista en América. O sea, básicamente, cómo la traducción funciona. Hablar un poquito de la Malinche, hablar de cómo el conocer un idioma te permite controlar una población, ¿no?
Okay, very interesting. As a means to this is just one example. I don't take it that seriously. I'm not that accurate, Alfred. But the main idea is to discriminate the two different chapters. Okay, very well. There you have a topic. Thank you. Cultural translation as a means to control communities. Wow. Now, let's take a look at the topic. We have one main word here, which is translation. Translation. Let's draw an outline. Translation. Culture. Translation. Yeah, it's okay. Culture. Okay. This translation is not a concept, you know. Translation has been studied from different perspectives, you know, sociology, anthropology, languages, of course, applied linguistics, okay, and culture has been studied too. So here we're dealing with theory. Okay, this is very general. I mean, it's not that we're going to write about the history on translation, the different concepts of culture, and that's why we need to narrow the topic. However, for the purposes of this exercise, I'm just giving you certain keywords and clues for you to identify the theory and to know that you need to write perhaps a theoretical framework that deals, with the different kinds of translation, in this case, cultural translation. But in order for you to get to the point of cultural translation, perhaps you will have to deal with comparative translation or different kinds of translation or interpretation that has been put on the spotlight, that has been discussed previously and that has many different perspectives according to different authors and according to different schools, okay, in the United States or in Europe, which might be different, or the concept of culture, which has to do with theory, whether you take a definition from anthropology, or from sociology, or from applied linguistics, etc. So you're dealing here with theory. That's right here, a theoretical framework. Sorry for the dogs, they're not mine, my neighbors. A theoretical. Sorry. Framework. Now, and then you have communities, a control, perhaps the word control, just as an example, will have to be thoroughly explored. And that's not something that we're going to find in the literature. That's something that perhaps is going to be found when revising, the literature review, when revising what has been previously said, you find that the word control has been used in different contexts: politics, philosophy, philology, languages, okay, law, etc., etc. Different fields. You will have to define the concept, because you want your readers to understand what you're trying to get at when you say to control communities. Okay, perhaps it's not the topic that what's your name, Alfredo was trying to get at. Might be a different concept, yeah, but it's the concept that you want to define for the purposes of this exercise. In that case, we would need a conceptual framework. Although it's going to be very straightforward and short, we need to define the words. Now, what can we include in the literature review? Not that you need the three of them, huh? No. It depends a lot on the topic. It depends on the methodology. It depends on your research questions. A lot of elements need to be taken into account. What I want you to do is to discriminate the elements that might make up each of the chapters. But it's not that you're going to have to include every single chapter in your research paper. It's not needed. It depends on your research questions, on the methodology, on the topic itself, you know. But the talk is for you to dimension those elements that make up each of the chapters and to know that they are not the same one, you know. Basically, I would say that the relevance of the talk is precisely to figure out that they are different, you know, and as different as they are gonna take care of specific elements of your research. What can you include then here? Well, previous research on this topic, okay? Perhaps, you know, the investigations that have been carried out in Africa, the investigations that have been carried out in America, the investigations that have been carried out in the specific context of the research, to have a general overview. This is a very accurate word, by the way, an overview of what people have said on the topic. And then you can say, okay, you know, in Africa, research states that, okay, in America, the findings suggest that, okay, in Asia, the outcomes state that. Now, the hereby research, as a result of the review, as a result of the revision, okay, aims at filling this gap, this specific gap. Very humble, modest, you know, doable, feasible, tangible, but in the end, you know, valuable, unique, and let's say relevant. Okay, and that's going to be part of your rationale. You know, this is basically, this is going to help you go back to your rationale. I'm going to write this down. Oh, you cannot see very well. Rationale. What is a rationale? Well, it's basically the explanation of the suitability of your research topic. It shows, you know, readers that your topic is worth investigating, that you are inquiring the topic for a specific reason, and that you have already set the main and general objective, and that it can be reached by means of a general research question. So basically, it's the justification of what you're doing, what you're asking, what you're wondering, what you're inquiring. All of them are connected, of course, you know, all of them are connected, as I said. But that doesn't mean that they carry the same elements. You follow different processes, and they require special attention. They need to be, I mean, a lot of attention has to be paid for filling in each of the chapters. Okay. Perhaps later it would be good for you to read by your own, but also to ask your professors, you know, when you join, when you enroll the research course at the end of your BA studies, to inquire and to ask your professors the differences between qualitative and quantitative research. Because once the approach is clearer, the research report, you know, the more clear you have the idea of investigation, the better for you to construct, to edify, to place the appropriate chapters in your report, because that's what you're going to provide with at the end. You know, it's a research report. the conventions are going to vary, you know, the structure might vary a bit depending on the topic and depending on what you want to work. For instance, you know, this is something that Esteban is really familiar with. A research report in the area of translation is very different than a research report in the area of teaching and learning, you know, or the area of a literature. They are, I mean, the format, the framework is totally different. Okay, applied research than, you know, empirical research than, you know, an exploration. Okay, so all the elements make impact on the decisions that you're going to make while doing research. This is just an introduction. Those are general differences among the three different chapters, the three different sections of your research report. But it's gonna be for your reflection, I would say. You know, you need to be really reflective and insightful in relation to the differences. And one thing that we do all the time when doing research is to make decisions, you know. Nobody knows how to write a research report if you haven't experienced that before. I mean, you are in the process, you're learning, but of course you can get informed and you can ask questions and you have a lot of reliable sources that you can check. Okay. Well, it's been an hour, so I would like to hear from you. I can imagine that you have plenty of questions, right, students? I wasn't sharing my screen.
Oh, no, you didn't.
Oh my God. Well, I wrote everything here, you know, and nobody told me. I thought I was sharing my screen, but I was sharing this. Yeah, well, I wrote the topic that Alfredo suggested with a different interpretation, of course, and I was explaining everything here in a slide. But well, I guess you were not able to check it, right? Well, now you can check it.
Yes, exactly. Now we can check.
Yeah, I thought I was sharing my screen, but I perhaps I was breaking up and I didn't figure it out. Anyways, any specific question, please, you can share with me and we could discuss it here.
Yes, exactly. Please start raising your hands. So the first one is Daniela.
Okay.
Hi, teacher. Good
Hello.
afternoon. It's not a question specifically. I just want to highlight if I can see that I understand those concepts. So in the theoretical framework, you have the topic, but it's like a general idea. And then in the conceptual framework, you like specifies it because you previously do like a research, and then you are specifying, well, I would like to do this one, but in this area, and then I don't know, I just want to talk about this topic that is about learning with this perspective. So that is it's like the process, right? First the theoretical framework, where it's a general, and then the conceptual, where you highlight or specify your topic, isn't it?
Thank you for your comment, Daniela. Somehow you're in the right track. But let me define this with different words, okay? The theoretical framework deals with theory, okay? I can give you another example right now, you know. I'm still sharing my screen, yeah, right? Okay. Now,
Yes.
if you're dealing with the word translation, you need to revise a lot of theory, okay? Theory on the field, no concepts, you know, because translation is not a concept. No. It's a field of study. So a lot of theory has to be revised. And that's going to be the, let's say, that's going to be the task of the literature review. Sorry, that's going to be the task of the theoretical framework. A framework, what is a framework? It's kind of a square, it's a structure. That's going to structure, you know, the theory that you have read for the topic. What is a concept? A concept is more a definition, okay? It's not that you're going to be more specific about your topic. No, it's that perhaps there's certain words or concepts, not theory, concepts that need to be explored in a specific context and that can be understood in different manners, okay? Can be understood and sometimes can be, you know, kind of tricky. And if they are misunderstood, well, your topic is not going to be following the intended sequence, you know, the path, the research path. And that's why, you know, many authors decide to include a conceptual framework because the theory itself might not be enough to be understood. If they have problems understanding several concepts in a theory, they take those concepts and they write it down specifically in a conceptual framework where the reader can understand the discussion that those concepts and definitions have experienced in different contexts by different fields. And in this negotiation of meaning, you know, agreement is reached by stating what the concepts mean, the definitions in the conceptual framework in order to understand the topic that you're investigating. Sometimes it's not necessary, you know. I don't usually write a conceptual framework because of the field of study that I'm exploring, you know, which is social linguistics or applied linguistics to teaching and learning. I don't usually write a conceptual framework. It's not necessary because of the topics that I have investigated. I usually go for the theory. I deal with theory and that's enough for me. I read what has been said in different journals and papers and documents and files, and that's part of the literature review. And I use a literature review for the field of education. It's very important to know what has been said and what has been done in relation to the topic that you decided to explore, you know. But to a certain extent, you know, both the conceptual framework and the theoretical framework define your topic. You know, they frame the topic, both of them. They provide with the frame. It's what you have read about what you want to investigate. And you need to know about it because otherwise it would be a repetition, you know. If you haven't read, perhaps you are repeating something. So you need to make it clearer and you need to tell your readers, this is what I have found. This is what the theory says. This is what the concepts define in this particular context. And this is what I want to reach, you know, which is different. At least, you know, it's going to be a unique context, and that makes it valid, you know. So it's not that you're going to need both the theoretical and the conceptual framework to define your topic specifically. No, not at all. It's just that the former deals with the theory and the latter deals with definitions and words that could be confusing in a single theoretical framework. Authors take the words out, the definitions out, and they discuss the definitions in a different frame, you know, to be clearer, to be more straightforward, and to set the definitions for the specific context. Okay, that would be my comment in relation to your proposal, Danny.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, teacher. Yeah.
Does anybody else? Yeah, Alfred, please.
Yes, I do have a question. There is this slide that caught my attention. Then I think this was the number 5.
Okay.
5 or
let me go back.
Or 4 is the process on how to make a theoretical framework.
Yeah.
That one. Yeah.
The literature review. This is a literature review.
No, I don't think. No, not one. That one. What's
this is the theoretical framework.
Yeah, it was number 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's for a literature review.
All right. Yeah. The issue here that I see on many students is that they fail to stop the wheel, to find the sweet spot where you stop researching or stop writing, or vice versa.
Yeah.
You stop too early. So I don't know if I know there's no magic formula for that to figure out when to tell yourself that your thesis or your literature review is ready, whatever you're writing. There is no magic formula, of course, but I would like to know if there is any tips for that, because I think that's the main issue with everyone. They keep researching, they keep finding more sources, or either they fail to move on to the next step, and that's when someone doesn't get to graduate or write a thesis. That's my question. So where is the sweet spot for that?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. And if I'm going to ask you for your permission to switch into Spanish for a bit, okay? Because this is a very interesting one. And I want this to be clear, okay? Because perhaps most students are still, you know, wondering, hesitating in relation to, I mean, they need to be doing research for making sense of everything we have discussed. But you're right. And it's very difficult, not even for students, I mean, novice researchers, for investigators, you know, for scholars. It's very difficult to find room to say, you know, okay, I don't need to read anymore. I think I can come up with my report, okay? Bueno, si me lo permiten, en este proceso de investigación documental, porque esto es investigación documental, no es propiamente investigación ya aplicada o implementación, mucho menos, ¿no? Esta es investigación documental, lo que nosotros en este terreno llamamos investigación documental. Aquí no es tan complejo parar y decir, a ver, ¿qué más necesito incluir en mi revisión de literatura? ¿Por qué no es tan complejo? Porque básicamente, si ustedes leyeron la última lámina, slide, la última página, no sé qué, diapositiva, yo les digo que hay una fuerte relación entre una revisión de literatura y la pregunta de investigación. A ver, ¿qué es una pregunta de investigación para empezar? Es que es muchísima información ahorita para ustedes. ¿Qué es una pregunta de investigación? Una pregunta de investigación es el soporte en donde se ancla el problema que ustedes quieren explorar, comprender o reportar. ¿no? O lo que sea que ustedes, cualquier verbo que ustedes le quieran poner, el problema, ¿no? Entonces, en lugar de ustedes poner una hipótesis, es decir, de asumir algo, ustedes se cuestionan. Y esa es la naturaleza de la investigación, cuestionarse. Al momento de que ustedes se cuestionan y que plantean algo, no se puede plantear sin, sin un fundamento, ya sea teórico o un fundamento válido. Nosotros formamos precisamente estos, por eso muchas de las experiencias educativas que nosotros tomamos se llaman fundamentos. A partir de una revisión sistemática, cuidadosa, rigurosa. Ese rigor es la sistematización de la lectura de este proceso documental, ¿ok? Que va a cambiar. Muchas veces al leer, la investigación vas y vienes. Cambia tu tema, vuelve a cambiar tu pregunta, vuelve a cambiar el foco de estudio y vuelves a cambiar todo lo vuelves a cambiar porque eso hace la lectura, que hace que reflexiones, es un proceso reflectivo. Tú paras en el momento en el que tu pregunta de investigación, o sea, tú solidificas tu literatura, tu revisión, nosotros le decimos literatura, tú solidificas tu revisión de literatura, una vez que tu pregunta de investigación ya puede responder y alcanzar el objetivo que tú planteaste de manera general. Entonces, en ese momento tú dices, bueno, ya tengo mi literatura, ahí está. Ahora, esto no se va a quedar así. O sea, la revisión de literatura es una constante. Si tú recolectas datos, si tú vas al trabajo de campo, que se le dice el trabajo de campo, vas, recolectas entrevistas, observas, encuestas, lo que sea que vayas a hacer, ¿no? Recolectas los datos y te das cuenta que de tu revisión de literatura, ¿ok? Incluso de lo que tú querías encontrar con tu pregunta de investigación, pues no alcanza, o sea, no alcanza los datos, o tal vez encontraste cosas que dan respuesta, pero a otra pregunta, ¿no? Entonces ahí es donde tú como investigador tienes que tomar decisiones. Para un investigador novato, pues obviamente sí cuesta mucho y no sabes cómo acomodar las piezas en un reporte. Si no sabes cómo responder a los retos que te representa hacer investigación, imagínate para cambiar un reporte. Entonces ahí la función del director es muy importante, ¿no? ¿Por qué? Porque entonces al encontrar datos, al hallar, porque eso es hallar, un hallazgo es eso, es encontrar, ¿no? No es algo es algo que quizás no esperabas, aunque pilotees, aunque prepares tus métodos de recolección de datos, aunque tus instrumentos ya hayan sido, muchas veces pues sucede, esto es la naturaleza de la investigación. Bueno, son las condiciones, más que la naturaleza, son las condiciones de preguntarse algo. Y ahí es cuando tú tienes que regresar a tu literatura. Regresas y dices, bueno, pues ahora voy a leer acerca de esto. Y regresas y en el camino tú recompones, o sea, no es lineal la investigación. Tú regresas y compones y estructuras. Ahora, sí hay máximas en la investigación, ¿no? Una de esas máximas, por supuesto, es la ética. Es la validez, la confiabilidad y la honestidad. Yo considero, yo les digo que la honestidad es un valor importantísimo en la investigación, es fundamental. Todo lo que se hace, ya sea que vas, regresas y vienes y vuelves a venir, tiene que estar esclarecido en el procedimiento que tú llevaste a cabo, porque la honestidad te va a dar, aunque no lo crean, les va a dar sistematización y les va a dar al final les va a dar lo que nosotros decimos trustworthiness, ¿no? Y
Y ahí
entonces una vez que
justamente eso, perdón, tantito, Cliserio, si me podrías ahí otra vez hacerles énfasis, que es el trustworthiness, por una razón muy específica, que no nada más se queden con el concepto, sino justamente en esto que ahorita les estás dando a entender, que puedan captar el por qué es importante que la investigación cumpla con ese criterio, por favor.
sí, claro que sí, Esteban. A ver, miren, por ejemplo, ¿qué pasa cuando ustedes no siguen convenciones de escritura? pues muchas veces se cae en el plagio, ¿no? O simplemente no nos creen las ideas, ¿no? No porque no estén sólidas, sino porque no sabemos cómo emergieron. En la investigación, por hacer una analogía, nosotros también no solamente nos fijamos en el plagio, o sea, que es fundamental, o sea, que no haya plagio, es muy importante en cualquier tipo de escritura y en la investigación también, en los reportes de investigación de cualquier formato. Pero algo que es muy importante en los procedimientos investigativos es llevar a cabo protocolos. En este sentido, los protocolos para la investigación son implícitos valores, como la honestidad, la responsabilidad, el pensamiento crítico, cómo hacer las cosas, para qué, bueno, eso es ya, cualquier programa de estudios se los va a describir de manera detallada, no vamos a detenernos mucho en eso. Pero sí hay procedimientos muy importantes en la investigación. Si yo voy a pilotear un trabajo, ¿okay? Yo voy a explicar que hubo un pilotaje de investigación, yo voy a explicar cómo diseñé el método de recolección, si lo tomé de un lado, si lo adapté, si yo lo inventé, lo que sea, bueno, es difícil que yo lo haya inventado ahora, pero lo voy a explicar. Y esto nos lleva a una explicación de un procedimiento, ¿ok? Pero esta explicación de procedimiento también tiene algunas, digamos, pautas pautas y pactos en la investigación que tienen que ver con, pues, ¿cómo se los digo para que sea comprensible? Tiene que ver con estándares para que nosotros de verdad podamos decir que esto es hacer investigación. Uno de ellos es, por ejemplo, consultar a los participantes, ¿no? Si quieren participar o no quieren. Si nuestra muestra está enterada, ¿qué hacemos nosotros con los datos? ¿No? ¿Cómo mantenemos el anonimato de nuestros participantes? ¿Qué hacemos al respecto? ¿Qué documentos nos respaldan el uso de sus palabras? ¿Cómo pedimos permiso para guardar los datos que ellos nos proporcionan? Son cuidados específicos, son cuidados específicos propios del hacer investigación. Otro ejemplo que yo les puedo dar es, por ejemplo, una carta de consentimiento que se le da a los participantes para que ellos, pues, den su visto bueno para que ustedes hagan uso profesional de los datos recabados, ya sea para su tesis, bueno, no va a ser tesis, pero para su reporte de investigación, ya sea para un foro internacional, ya sea para una publicación, y para los propósitos específicos que ustedes planteen, pero que los participantes estén informados de qué se hará con eso. Y así hay detalles que ustedes van a ir aprendiendo, o sea, pues hay muchos, ustedes van a ir aprendiendo que conforman tanto la validez como la confiabilidad de su estudio. Esto se alcanza, yo se los digo, básicamente con la honestidad. Es con base en la honestidad y que hace válido su trabajo. ¿Cómo es válido? Bueno, pues porque es un trabajo profesional. ¿Ok? Bueno, ya que les estaba yo hablando de eso, ya hasta se me olvidó qué les estaba diciendo, pero se me olvidó qué les estaba diciendo con relación a la investigación documental. Ya ni me acuerdo en dónde me quedé. Ustedes disculparán, pero sí les estaba yo explicando que se separa esa fina línea, digamos, entre que está listo o no está lista mi revisión de literatura, la encuentran con la pregunta de investigación. Básicamente, cuando ya está lista para ser abordada, para intentar responderla, digamos, con los datos, es que nuestra literatura ya nos respalda, ya puede respaldar el tema de investigación. Incluso ya se puede hacer una interpretación de los datos que nosotros encontremos. ¿Para qué? Para regresarnos a la pregunta de investigación e intentar responderla. Ahí es cuando nosotros decimos, bueno, ya tengo por lo menos, este es mi final draft of the literature review, ¿no? Porque siempre le pone ahí final draft, final draft 1, final draft 2. Entonces ya ese es, digamos, un final draft of the literature review. Lo mismo podría pasar, es más difícil que pase con el marco teórico, porque es un marco justamente, es un encuadre, ¿sí? Es la base, eso es lo que es un marco, es una base de teoría. Mover la teoría ya será muy complicado, a menos que haya sido mal diseñado el instrumento para recolectar datos. Si es así, o que no haya habido pilotaje, entonces ya es que sucedería un cambio drástico o algo muy dramático, si no, se ve, es un poquito más raro que se dé. Ahora, esto es muy distinto, Alfredo, porque esto no es tan complejo, o sea, tú sabes que va a cambiar, de antemano lo tienes que tener en claro, lo tienes que considerar, va a cambiar, y no preocuparse porque, ay, ya o no, o ya o no. Yo creo que la investigación misma, el proceso te va dando las pautas para que tú digas ya. Pero cuando estás recolectando datos, ahí sí. Y sobre todo cuando eres novato en la investigación, ahí sí es difícil decir hasta cuándo recolecto datos para, poder redactar hallazgos o resultados. Pero eso es diferente, ese es otro tema, ¿no? Nosotros estamos tratando ahorita con lo que es una revisión de literatura, un marco teórico y un marco conceptual. No podemos adentrarnos todavía en la redacción de hallazgos o de resultados porque, bueno, es un proceso que más adelante ustedes probablemente tengan que enfrentar. Pero ahí sí, entonces ahí sí se vuelve un poco más complejo decir hasta cuándo. Ahí lo que te ayuda mucho es la selección del tipo de estudio, tu marco metodológico. Eso es, pero ya eso después lo discutiremos en otra ocasión si hay oportunidad. Bueno, pues estudiantes, ha sido un placer utilizar el Spanglish y irnos de, pues ahora sí que literalmente fuimos de un marco a otro, de una revisión a otra, y tocamos puntos muy relevantes de la investigación. Es que es mucho. Esteban no me dejará mentir, el maestro Esteban sabe que es cada punto es como una unidad de trabajo. O sea, la verdad,
Efectivamente.
para yo explicarles trustworthiness necesitaría 2 semanitas, o sea, nos tomamos 2 semanas. Para yo explicarles la literatura, pues nos llevamos 2 semanas. Esta fue una charla, pues, que busca que ustedes reflexionen, y a partir de esa reflexión, por lo menos ya para ustedes es claro que no son lo mismo. Y eso para mí ya es ganancia. Creo que eso es muy sano y les va a ayudar a pensar qué es lo que van a hacer. Y después cuando ya eventualmente tomen el curso, digan, a ver, ¿qué es una pregunta de investigación y cómo la relaciono con mi literatura? Y ya ahí, entonces, van a tener más tiempo con sus profesores, con sus directores, con sus mismos compañeros y con su propio trabajo autodirigido para detenerse en cada uno de estos puntos. Ahora, yo no podía presentar sin mencionar algunos, por eso es que se va uno regresando, deteniendo, porque pues es que son unidades, son conceptos que necesitan ser revisados a fondo y que necesitan ser discutidos. Pero bueno, muchas gracias, maestro Esteban, gracias, estudiantes, espero que les haya servido y que después nos volvamos a encontrar en alguna experiencia educativa.
Gracias,
Al
profe.
contrario, muchas gracias, maestro Cliserio, por esta tan relevante e importante plática. Como bien lo has mencionado, es justamente una breve introducción a lo que se van a exponer ellos, ya sea el siguiente semestre o dentro de 2 semestres más. Sí, pero considero que también debido a la práctica que tiene el maestro Cliserio y sobre todo también la forma metódica en la que llevó su exposición, pues fue de gran ayuda para que todos pudieran estar percibiendo, reflexionando de qué va la investigación, cuáles son los procesos que se llevan y sobre todo en este énfasis en diferenciar lo que es el marco teórico, lo que es también la revisión de literatura y con ello vean también la necesidad del por qué ahorita que estamos viendo la redacción de una especie de marco teórico, vean también las exigencias y los criterios que se están haciendo para que pueda quedar con claridad, precisión y sobre todo cero ambigüedad, porque de ahí depende el éxito que se tenga al desarrollar ya todo un proyecto de investigación. Entonces, muchachos, no sé si tuvieran alguna otra pregunta que formularle al maestro Cliserio antes de que terminemos.
Creo que no, profesor.
Entonces, en ese sentido, pues le agradecemos nuevamente, Cliserio, y enhorabuena, Cliserio, muchas gracias por esta charla. Y pues,
Gracias,
entonces,
pues, nos vemos.
adelante.
Un saludo.